All right, we're gonna do kind of a lunchtime thing again. Gonna upload it later. So, the blackpilling continues on the internet. I don't think it's really going to lead anywhere, but I'd like to throw in kind of my 2 cents on the violence of the past week or so. You see, there's an element of um, myopia that's going on, and some of the only people that get it appear to be on, the Christian right or people who live in third world countries, and I'll explain what's going on. Okay, so today, after this New Zealand incident, there was another such incident of people being attacked in the Netherlands, which was the complete opposite. Okay, the complete opposite, and nobody apparently is trying to say, well, I wonder, don't you think it's a little odd that people get attacked in one country and the retribution is carried out across the world? You don't think that's a little messed up? And yet people aren't calling for the censorship or banning of the distribution of materials and propaganda by the second incident people. Okay, the second incident people, of course, they belong to a certain faith that we're not going to talk about for this video, but I think you guys know what I'm talking about. So this is the basic problem here. And the black pillars themselves they don't care about really examining the issue of the lack of standards. This is something I addressed about a month ago when I talked about these terror attacks against India and Kenya. Okay, the media here in the U.S. could care less when people die in mass casualty incidents across the world. They kind of pay attention for a couple days, unless there's some sort of major overarching reason. They are covering Venezuela to an extent, because yes, there's a possibility of U.S. intervention. Okay, and in some ways they're being misleading on Venezuela, but you have to. They're making up for the other side being misleading on Venezuela. So you have all these like they focused nonstop on New Zealand last week. I kind of tuned out after maybe an hour, and they didn't dedicate any attention to the murders of, I think it was over 130 people in Nigeria who were Christian by a bunch of tribesmen of a certain other religion. And then they don't cover this double murder in Israel. They don't cover, and I think it might be up to 3 now. They also didn't cover, to much extent, this attack in the Netherlands, because apparently the standard doesn't exist. And by the way, focusing on what's going on over in Israel and the Gaza Strip, there was almost a new war over there over the past week. There was bombing of targets in response to rockets being fired from the Gaza Strip. Well, the media thinks that's normal, that's par for the course, because they've desensitized the world to the fact that you actually have there is no way forward over there when you have attitudes that are so entrenched and that reject any sort of solution, that they're not looking to solve anything. And I'll give you another example of this within that issue. This weekend, apparently, and this is according to multiple sources, there were protests in the Gaza Strip against the government there, the Hamas government, and apparently a number of people were severely beaten, detained for hours. Some of them continue to be detained, including journalists locked up. I don't remember if there were fatalities or not, but that didn't receive any coverage, because the fact of the matter is that it's not interesting when when countries oppress their own people and apply basically draconian standards against them. It's the same reason that they don't necessarily care that much about what happens in China. They don't care very much about what happens in some countries in the Far East, like Vietnam. Okay, now I'm not saying that we should be involved in what's going on there, but the perspective is that over there, that type of behavior is acceptable, and I don't think it should. I don't think that we should be trying to emulate that type of behavior in the Western world by imposing new levels of censorship and limits on freedom of speech. Okay, so you had that incident in the Gaza Strip, so suddenly when it's over there, when police beat protesters, it's not that big of a deal. When police beat protesters in Venezuela, it's kind of a big deal, although in all truth, I don't think that they really cared until very recently. When police beat protesters in France or here in the U.S., I think it's different. It's kind of a matter of opinion depending on what side of the political spectrum you're on. So, there was talk yesterday. Tim Pool was talking about the issue of a number of Ferguson protesters dying mysteriously. And the question becomes, once you get to the point where there's complete elimination of trust between the police and the population, you can't expect any sort of justice, because who's going to investigate it? The people that the protesters, the people that the community have rejected, they're not going to get cooperation from the community anyway. Not very likely. So who's responsible for that? I'd say, yeah, the police is partly responsible for that, but so are the people who, rioted and burnt stores over in Ferguson. This standard that's going on around the world, if the same people, okay, and I know people like this, okay, the same people who will complain or talk about, meddling in their own country when the police are attacked or there's some sort of mass casualty incident, when their rival country right across the border, the same thing happens over there, they call it, I guess, they call it saber rattling. That happened. That happened with Modi. People were saying, well, Modi's trying to get into a new war. Yes, Narendra Modi, this Indian, suddenly has come up with this whole new specter of terrorism from the Kashmir that killed, I believe it was 40 of his own police. And he's trying to use it in order to draw up a new war so he can win an election. Are you out of your damn mind? India's been chronically attacked by terrorists for decades, and that's regardless of what political party was in power. Okay? India's been attacked by terrorists for decades. You have Nigeria, which has just been plagued by tribal and ethnic conflict since its beginning, and now you have a religious conflict. You have Pakistan has its own strings of bombings. People of different sects within the religion are killing each other, and yet people think that the answer is to censor the people who are talking about the issues in the West, okay, as if that's going to solve the problem over there. It just isn't going to work. So please, I think you guys can understand that I'm a bit frustrated at the moment. I don't think that things are on a good incline at the moment, and I sense it among other people as well. But we can't lose track of the fact that they're trying to actually move the conversation away from the public square and silence voices in order to promote kind of a consensus that I feel will eventually fall apart, as it always does. That's about it. Please like, share, subscribe to my other channel, Razor Ray Special Cuts, as well as my channel on BitChute and my accounts on Minds and Gab. See you later.